Well, if you're a regular visitor to Property Tribes, you will have noticed at the beginning of January that a new tribe appeared called Broadband and Wi-Fi, and that is to curate all our discussions around this increasingly important topic. And we've created this for a new sponsor. It's Landlord Broadband, and I'm joined on Zoom by Managing Director Andrew Simpson. Delightful to welcome you back as a sponsor of Property Tribes, and it comes at such an interesting time in our sector, and we'll talk about that. But before we get going, well, Landlord Broadband does what it says on the tin, but perhaps you could give us a bit of an overview of the business and the service that you offer to landlords.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it starts with increasing expectations of tenants and guests in serviced accommodation wanting instant internet access when they move into a property. And you've seen over the last few years, there's been increasing demand for bills inclusive packages. And now sort of broadband and Wi-Fi, if you like, is probably seen as the fourth essential utility in many respects, and certainly in markets like the student market in particular. So we help landlords provide Wi-Fi friendly accommodation for their tenants and guests, and over the last sort of few years it's become a more complex area, if you like, because the utility from a tenant and guest perspective is very much around Wi-Fi, and there's an expectation if you go anywhere, whether it's a hotel or whether it's university or whether it's all over really. You've even got buses with Wi-Fi access on, and so there's an expectation that internet access is readily available. And what we do is we specialise in providing landlords with a hassle-free service, so that can be included, because obviously it's technology can be complex at times. It's getting increasingly more complex, and what we tend to focus on is two sort of key areas. Firstly, the performance and the solution. So you've got the broadband aspect, which, if you like, is the data and the capacity going into the property or building. And we need to obviously make sure that there's sufficient capacity for the number of users so they can upload and download and stream all at the same time, which is very challenging, particularly in multiple occupancy properties. So a lot of our sort of customers have HMOs in particular, or blocks of purpose-built student accommodation, and obviously the demand for internet even pre-COVID was high in the rental market. So we have to make sure that it's robust. We provide a commercial broadband solution that can obviously handle that type of demand. But certainly what's changed over the last few years, and that's obviously driven by the devices that people have. So obviously, your laptops, your iPads, your smart TVs, etc., don't necessarily want to connect to broadband via a cable anymore, and it's inconvenient anyway. So it's very much around Wi-Fi and wireless in the property, and particularly in the rental market, this can be a real challenge, because obviously, if you put a standard domestic internet service in where you get a free router provided with your package, that's not going to be adequate for multiple users that's at high demand. And equally, you can have coverage issues in certain areas of the property. So is it correct that one tenant should be paying a certain amount of rent, but another tenant that's on the top floor pays the same amount of rent but doesn't have the same internet service and access within the property? So that's increasingly been a challenge when it comes to tenant expectations. So we need to obviously make sure that the Wi-Fi coverage is consistent throughout the property or building. So we design bespoke solutions that are measured to that particular multiple occupancy property or building, so there's no dead zones, and we provide a guarantee for no dead zones. And we've got a nationwide engineer network, so if there's part of that guarantee and warranty, then we go back and fix anything if there is anything untowards. And then just further from that, on the solution side of things, even if you've got a full signal throughout a property, you can still have and a brilliant on paper sort of broadband connection, which essentially is the pipe into the building, you can still have issues around performance based on congestion on channels and on the Wi-Fi, and Wi-Fi equipment being overloaded for the sheer number of devices that are being used. And I think we're talking on average 3 to 4 devices per user now. So if you apply that to the total number of people in a multiple occupancy house or HMO, then you're looking at a lot of demand. You've obviously even got your games consoles and your 4K smart TVs need more data, and your 8K smart TVs and so on. So it is a real challenge to get the Wi-Fi right where you've got high demand properties, and obviously that's where we come into our own, because that's our specialist area, and we're sort of an engineering technology company in the sector that looks after that for people. I think the second key area is the administration side of things. So we provide one bill for a landlord's portfolio, either in their own name or business name, and there's just one payment, and that's not something that's readily available across your sort of domestic service providers. So it makes the administration a lot simpler for the landlord. And secondly, we've got a tenant support desk that's 24/7 support. So if there's any faults or issues, then tenants would contact our tenant support desk rather than going through the landlord to resolve that. Obviously our fault rate, we like to think, is a lot lower than the sort of high street providers, because we need it to be as low as we possibly can get it, and that's managed through the tenant support desk. So support is provided directly to the tenants, because obviously it is something that is not perhaps as easy to manage as, say, gas and electricity, where you're talking about a commodity. IT and technology is complex, and a lot of our customers see the administration side as a good way of systemizing their property business essentially and outsourcing it, and obviously that's all included in the package.
You've picked up on some really impressive USPs there. The bills all under one bill, I think, as you say, is great. And also the tenant support desks, so that landlords don't have tenants ringing them complaining about their Wi-Fi or whatever. But Andy, everything that you've said was important pre-COVID-19,
yes,
but post-COVID-19, it's even more important, because so many people are spending so much time at home, and they're very broadband hungry. We've got people working from home, we've got homeschooling, our homes have taken on multiple roles now. And interestingly, just before we started this Zoom call, we were talking to Phil Spencer on this topic, and he says your home has to be your office, your gym, your school, as well as your sanctuary where you live. And I can see that your service is so important now. You said it's the fourth utility, but I think in terms of tenant demands, it's right up there as one of the top demands for tenants now, isn't it, to have good broadband?
Yeah, I think so. And obviously we've got to look at how things are going to look post-COVID as well. I mean, there's certain changes that are going to stay in place. There's probably going to be a more hybrid approach to working and office, and we've definitely seen higher demand and higher usage on the internet over the last sort of 9 or 10 months. It's gone through the roof, because you've got all those additional things that are taking place. So you've got Zoom, obviously that's taken off massively with Teams and so on, and you've got Google Classroom on the homeschooling side of things. So there's loads of different applications that weren't perhaps utilised as much before, that are now sort of essential for day-to-day activities, aren't they? And,
absolutely, yeah. And it was you that suggested this new kind of broadband stroke Wi-Fi tribe, which this interview will be appearing in. And I think that was a very good suggestion, Andy, because we recognise how important good broadband is. In a crowded marketplace where we've got a lot of tenant mobility, a lot of landlords are struggling to fill rooms and fill properties, etc. You've got to have, you know, some really strong marketing points, and one of them would definitely be, you know, very high speed, very robust broadband.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I say, increasingly it's going to be about internet coverage and performance as well within the property, because like I say, you can have what looks like a good broadband connection on paper, but a poor internet service to your tenants within the property. So it needs to be a comprehensive solution, because they want to access it wirelessly. And what I have noticed, particularly in the student market, is that students tend to have high quality laptops, but that is kind of a one-stop shop. They'll take it to a lecture, they'll take it to the library, they'll take it for a coffee, and they may take it to whatever work that's taking place as well. But that laptop is then sat on your desk watching Netflix on a night. So you need a 5-bar signal and the right performance to the desk in your room. So it really is absolutely key.
It is. Now, for somebody that wants to engage with Landlord Broadband service, what's the first thing that happens when they contact you as a prospective customer?
Well, we offer a free assessment for your property or portfolio. So there's a form on the website that you can click on, or through Property Tribes.
Yeah. And
we then ask for property address and floor plans for the property, and then we sort of design a solution with heat maps and so on, and then we propose that solution to the landlord. And if and when they choose to go ahead, then you're probably looking at about a 2 to 3 week lead time on installation from there. That's
brilliant. I'm guessing that you are getting increasingly busier,
yes.
You know, in the past months. We've got to be grateful that, you know, we've been saying all along that the property market has remained open,
Yes.
and, you know, that tenants are still moving. And I can only see that, you know, as you say, this robust broadband and service, you know, good service when it goes wrong, it's only going to become more and more important for landlords, and it's something that they need to give serious consideration to if their property isn't up to the standards that tenants expect in this regards.
Yeah, and we're happy to share content on the forum and field any technical queries. So our technical team will be looking at some of the comments as well, and you do tend to see sort of conversations around different types of hardware, and, you know, some of the problems that we've discussed in terms of signal and capacity and things like that. So we're really interested to see some of the comments that take place on the tribe.
Well, I will put a link to your free assessment, so below this video, so that people can jump straight there if they're interested to have that. And it's great to have your input in this category, Andy, because you're in a very niche spot here with the Landlord Broadband proposition, but you've been going for many years, haven't you? So you've got a lot of expertise in this area, born out of years of experience.
Yeah, that's it. And we're an engineering company, so we've got a nationwide set of engineers, and so we know a lot about this particular area. And you know, not only are domestic devices sort of increasing in terms of demand, you know, your laptops and your smart TVs and stuff like that, we're now starting to see, obviously, what you call Internet of Things solutions, such as smart thermostats and other technology that help landlords sort of manage the properties more remotely, that need Wi-Fi to enable that. So it's an area that's going to continue to grow, because it's going to facilitate not only the tenant experience, but also the landlord's sort of ability to manage the property effectively.
Well, actually, that's an incredibly important point, because we have seen this massive velocity of change in the take up of digital tools and products and services over COVID, because they've actually provided solutions to many of the problems that we're struggling with an analog solution, so to speak. So I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I think that these kind of insights and intel from companies such as yourself, they're going to give landlords the edge. You're at the very cutting edge of this. You're seeing trends develop in how people are using broadband and so on. And I think landlords have got to pay attention to this. And I'm really glad to have your input on Property Tribes in that regards.
Yeah, it's great to be back with Property Tribes.
Awesome. Well, we will pop a link to the free assessment below this video. If you've got any questions about Landlord Broadband or Wi-Fi, please do drop them into this category. Andy and his team will be happy to answer them. So all that remains for me is to say thank you very much to Andy for your support of Property Tribes. It's businesses such as yourself that help maintain Property Tribes as a free-to-use community resource. So thank you very much that you're going to be supporting the tribe going forwards with their needs around landlord broadband and Wi-Fi. Great to have you on board.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you again soon, because we're going to interview Andy as part of our Landlord Digital Lives campaign. So we'll see Andy again for Landlord Digital Lives. But for now, just saying thanks very much for being part of the interview, Andy, and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Vanessa.